When police entered Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment in July 1991, they had no idea what they were about to find. The officers were responding to a routine call, but what awaited them inside would haunt them for the rest of their lives. They uncovered horrors that defied belief, scenes so gruesome and surreal that even the most seasoned detectives struggled to process what they were seeing. The apartment was filled with a stench that clung to the walls, a silent witness to the unspeakable acts committed within. Beyond the dismembered remains and skulls, what truly shocked investigators were Polaroid photographs, Dahmer's chilling trophies, documenting his crimes in graphic detail. Each photo was a window into his twisted mind, capturing moments of horror that he seemed to relive over and over. These images were not hidden. They were part of his ritual, a testament to his need for control and his descent into depravity. The photos were arranged with care, almost as if he wanted to preserve every memory, every detail of his crimes. Over 13 years, Dahmer murdered 17 young men and boys, luring them with promises of money or alcohol, often targeting those society overlooked. Many of his victims were vulnerable, marginalized, and searching for connection in a world that often ignored them. His crimes went undetected for years, masked by his quiet, unassuming demeanor. Neighbors described him as polite, even friendly, never suspecting the darkness that lurked behind his apartment door. Dahmer's acts extended far beyond murder. He committed rape, necrophilia, and cannibalism, seeking to possess his victims completely. His obsession with control and domination drove him to commit acts that defied comprehension. He preserved body parts as trophies, meticulously cataloging his atrocities. Jars containing human remains lined his shelves, each one a grim reminder of a life taken and a secret kept. The story of Jeffrey Dahmer is not just about murder, but about psychological disturbance and the failure of systems meant to protect the vulnerable. It is a chilling reminder of how evil can hide in plain sight and how the consequences of neglect and indifference can be truly devastating. Dahmer's victims were not chosen at random. He targeted young men, often men of color, frequenting places where the marginalized gathered. He lured them with offers of money or companionship, exploiting their trust and desperation. His first murder in 1978 set the pattern: lure, kill, dismember, and conceal. After a 9-year gap, his spree intensified in Milwaukee from 1987 to 1991, refining his methods, drugging victims, ensuring privacy, and evading detection. Many victims were from communities overlooked by law enforcement, allowing Dahmer to continue unchecked. The disappearances rarely triggered urgent investigations, a systemic failure that shielded him. Each victim was a son, a friend, a life stolen and hidden until the horrifying truth emerged. Dahmer's predation was calculated, exploiting both individual vulnerability and societal neglect. Apartment 213 was Dahmer's private mausoleum, a place where he tried to create a living zombie through grotesque experiments. He drilled into victims' skulls, poured in acid or boiling water, all in a twisted quest for total possession. He kept skulls, hands, and other body parts as trophies, sometimes consuming them to make his victims part of him. The apartment reeked of death and chemicals, filled with saws, knives, and a blue drum for dissolving bodies. Neighbors complained, but the horror remained hidden behind closed doors. Dahmer's photographs documented his acts, creating a visual diary of his descent. This private gallery of death would ultimately become the evidence that ended his reign. Dahmer's capture began with the courage of Tracy Edwards, who escaped from Dahmer's apartment on July 22, 1991. Lured with promises of money, Edwards was handcuffed and threatened, but managed to keep calm and look for a chance to flee. When Dahmer was distracted, Edwards broke free and ran into the street, flagging down police. Officers, skeptical but curious, followed Edwards back to the apartment. Inside, they found the Polaroids, undeniable proof of murder. The quiet facade shattered. Dahmer's secrets were finally exposed. This chance encounter ended years of horror and brought his crimes to light. Edwards' bravery saved his own life and stopped a serial killer. After his arrest, Dahmer confessed in chilling detail, recounting each of his 17 murders with unsettling calm. The detectives who listened to him were struck by his lack of emotion, as if he were describing someone else's actions. He recounted the events with a disturbing clarity, never flinching as he described the horrors he had committed. He described his loneliness, his fear of abandonment, and his twisted desire to create a partner who would never leave. Dahmer spoke of his isolation, the emptiness that haunted him, and how it drove him to seek control over others in the most horrific ways. His words painted a portrait of a man consumed by darkness, desperate for connection, but unable to find it in any normal way. His confessions included his gruesome experiments and acts of cannibalism, claiming it made his victims part of him. He explained in graphic detail how he tried to preserve parts of his victims, hoping to keep them with him forever. The investigators were horrified by the extent of his depravity, realizing they were dealing with a mind unlike any they had encountered before. Dahmer's cooperation gave police a complete roadmap of his crimes, linking him to unsolved disappearances. He provided names, dates, and locations, helping authorities piece together a timeline that had eluded them for years. His detailed accounts allowed detectives to finally connect the dots between missing persons cases and the horrors discovered in his apartment. He even helped identify remains, offering a grim closure to some families. For those who had spent years searching for answers, Dahmer's confessions brought both relief and unimaginable pain. The truth was devastating, but it ended the agonizing uncertainty that had haunted so many loved ones. His willingness to talk was less about remorse and more about control. He wanted to narrate his own story. Dahmer seemed to relish the attention, carefully choosing his words as if he were the author of his own twisted legacy. He wanted the world to know what he had done, but on his terms. The confession revealed a psyche driven by obsession and a total lack of empathy. Psychologists who interviewed him noted his inability to feel guilt or compassion, describing him as emotionally detached and disturbingly methodical. Without his admissions, the full extent of his crimes might never have been known. His words exposed the depths of his darkness, ensuring that the truth, as horrifying as it was, would never be hidden again. Dahmer's 1992 trial was a media spectacle, but the facts were not in dispute. His own confession sealed that. The defense argued insanity, claiming Dahmer's compulsions made him unable to control his actions. Prosecutors countered that his careful planning and concealment proved he knew right from wrong. The jury faced a stark choice. Was Dahmer a madman or a calculating predator? Their verdict would determine whether he was to be treated or punished. The jury found Dahmer legally sane, sentencing him to 15 life terms, nearly 1,000 years in prison. For victims' families, it was a measure of justice, though nothing could undo the pain. Dahmer spent his first year in solitary, but later joined the general prison population by his own request. In 1994, he was killed by a fellow inmate, Christopher Scarver, ending his life at 34. Some saw his death as street justice. Others saw it as a failure of the prison system. The Oxford apartments, site of his crimes, were demolished, but the scars on Milwaukee and the nation remained. Dahmer's death cut short any further study of his mind, leaving many questions unanswered. His legacy would haunt true crime history for decades. Decades after his crimes, Jeffrey Dahmer's story continues to captivate and disturb audiences worldwide. In the digital age, his legacy has been revived and reimagined through a constant stream of documentaries, podcasts, and online discussions. Streaming platforms and social media have made it easier than ever for new generations to discover, dissect, and debate the details of his case, turning Dahmer into a household name for reasons both troubling and complex. The 2022 Netflix series brought Dahmer's crimes back into the spotlight, sparking renewed interest and debate about the ethics of dramatizing real-life horror for entertainment. This resurgence has not come without controversy. Many victims' families have spoken out, decrying what they see as the exploitation and re-traumatization of their loved ones' suffering for profit and spectacle. The case has become a cultural reference point, sometimes with tragic consequences. In 2024, a bullied Indiana boy, cruelly nicknamed Dahmer by classmates, died by suicide. An event that highlights the real-world impact of sensationalized crime stories and the dangers of turning criminals into infamous icons. The story's persistence in media blurs the line between fact and entertainment, often overshadowing the victims and distorting public understanding of the case. The constant retelling risks reducing real pain to mere spectacle. Defense attorney Gerald Boyle, who passed away in 2024, always maintained that his role was essential for justice. Not to excuse Dahmer's actions, but to ensure the legal system functioned fairly, even in the most horrific cases. His perspective reminds us of the importance of due process, even when emotions run high. The Dahmer case exemplifies the complex ethical challenges of true crime storytelling in the digital age, where stories can go viral and shape public opinion in unpredictable ways. It's a cautionary tale about the power and danger of media fascination, reminding us that the way we consume these stories can have real consequences for individuals and society. Ultimately, the victims' stories risk being lost amid the noise and sensationalism. As we revisit these cases, it's crucial to remember the real people at the heart of the tragedy, and to treat their memories with the dignity and respect they deserve. Dahmer's legacy is one of horror and fascination, forcing us to confront evil behind a mask of normalcy. His crimes exposed failures in society and law enforcement, especially toward marginalized communities. The story is not just about one man's sickness, but about systemic blind spots that let him operate unchecked. Today, the case is retold in new media, raising ethical questions about exploitation versus remembrance. The risk is forgetting the humanity of the victims, who deserve dignity and respect. To truly understand, we must look beyond headlines and ask hard questions about justice and empathy. The lessons of the Dahmer case remain urgent and relevant. Thank you for joining this exploration. Subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world.